talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit and every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course. And today I want to share something. I want to share some wisdom from past Dramos, if you will. And I know it's kind of douchey to talk about myself in the third person, but bear with me here. I was just going through some old stuff. I think sometimes when I get stuck, frustrated, at a bit of a loss, or I feel like I'm losing a little bit of my motivation to keep pushing forward on certain things, or just as a creative in general, I kind of find that by revisiting old projects, I sort of re-inspire myself. You know, I feel like there's some wisdom there, particularly when, you know, I'm able to revisit points in time where maybe I was feeling incredibly inspired and was sort of like living with this fire, you know, burning inside of me, you know. And amongst that, I should say, amongst sort of that reminiscing, I came across an old talk that I did as a part of the Just Be Social Club, which for anybody who's new here, that was a couple mastermind groups that I hosted for the better part of a year. We did 2 groups and we would meet weekly and just sort of like have conversations about my philosophy on life, and alongside my my partner Brenda in that project, and you know, just sort of giving people space and also trying to just consistently motivate one another each and every week, you know, and pick each other up as best we can. And one of the conversations I sort of stumbled upon, it was, I think, during the writer's strike, which plagued the TV and film industry. And at the time, I had a project that was like, we were hoping to get across the finish line, and the writer's strike kind of fucked everything over and was the nail in the coffin for it. But I sort of was like impressed by my own reaction to it at the time, and sort of how I was mentally in a place where I was just sort of accepting that for whatever reason, now wasn't the time for that particular project, and it was beyond my control, and I was in a good place where I could accept it, you know? And I was sort of impressed by that, inspired by that, and I thought as a whole the conversation was really good and relevant to a lot of things that are going on in my life. And I think a great refresher for so many of us. I think, you know, something I've been, I don't want to say struggling with, but something I've been dealing with is, you know, I have 2 things that I'm very excited about, 2 things that are potentially, you know, great sort of steps in the next direction that would sort of, you know, at least for the better part of the next year, sort of give me direction as to what my life would look like career-wise, you know? And ironically, with these 2 things, the parties involved have sort of been a little bit touch and go, or a little, I don't want to say sketchy, I don't think that's the right word, but like we'll be great, we'll be like doing emails back and forth, and then all of a sudden they will fall off the face of the earth for like, you know, over a week and then reemerge. And it's like incredibly frustrating because like, dude, I just want to fucking wrap this up and sort of like, you know, get into a place mentally where I'm like, all right, this is what, you know, the better part of my next year is going to look like, especially as a creative. You know, it's not like we are, at least in my sort of area or how my things are set up. A lot of the projects are sort of, you know, it's project oriented, you know, so I don't have, a salary that I'm counting on or things like that. It's kind of like, all right, you sort of are creating new opportunities, and then like each year you're kind of reevaluating and, you know, sort of potentially restarting or whatever it might be. So for me, it's like the idea of being able to have a sense of direction and sort of know like, okay, you can maybe put your attention now in this one thing and allow yourself to have that sigh of relief as far as what the next year looks like. Not having that is incredibly frustrating, especially when it's like we're so close and there's just like a slow person on the other side of that email chain, essentially not, responding as quickly as you'd like, right? And I've been, I'll get down about it, I'll get frustrated, I'll get annoyed, whatever it might be, and I keep trying to remind myself, like, God's got you, the universe has got you, always has. And well, I don't want to like ruin what I talk about in this talk that I'm about to share with you. But I do mention in this talk the idea of like the bridge, right? And I was really actually impressed by my mindset during that time period, where I sort of was like checking myself of like, stop trying to think so far ahead. Stop trying to have it all figured out. Just accept and appreciate the like sort of bridges that come along the way that keep you moving, right? The little wins along the way. And I've had a few of those, in the moments where I'm kind of like, I don't really know what the next month looks like. Boom, an opportunity comes up and like, oh, okay, now I know what the rest of my next month looks like. And it's not, the year laid out that I would love ideally, but it is sort of in the present moment, giving me what I need to sort of keep pushing forward. And yeah, I guess I'm not appreciating the bridges or not understanding the value of the bridges as much as I should. And I guess as typically what happens, you sort of find these conversations when you need them the most. And old me was spreading some wisdom, which I thought was really profound. And also just something I'll touch on this as we kind of close out, but I think the idea is also to constantly be in a mode of creation, right? I truly do believe, and it's been my experience, that as long as I've stayed in a mode of creation, even if I didn't know where that creation was going to go, even if that particular creation didn't have some sort of guaranteed paycheck or whatever it might be, the fact that every day I showed up and was always looking for new opportunities to create, eventually I kept stumbling and stepping in things, right? I look at my career, and that's the story of my career, is I just kept looking for the next opportunity. I kept being in a mode of creation. I never sort of sat still. And that's why, I consistently every time would find new opportunities, or when I would have a setback, I would bounce back rather quickly, or a setback would never truly derail me, because I always have stayed in a mode of constant creation, which eventually yields some sort of results. Now, maybe not always the sort of big, like in my example, 1 year out result that you're looking for right now, but it always provides you with the bridge that you need to keep on pushing, to keep on fighting. And I think there's value in that. And I think oftentimes we lack gratitude for that and sort of make ourselves feel like we're in a worse situation than we actually are, if that makes sense. But yeah, just wanted to, I guess, preface the conversation with that. Without further ado, though, we'll share it as like a long mi gente segment. Take in this wisdom from past Dramos, a talk I gave for the Just Be Social Club mastermind group.
I'll probably just kind of start getting into some of the things that I wanted to talk about today. I'm excited because I'm going to be sharing something that's been really effective for me in terms of goal setting and staying consistent on getting the shit that I need to get done. And Brenda's seen this firsthand, like how this has just been like a game changer, and we've just been tearing through goals that I've had for the year and things like that. So I'll share that with y'all today. And obviously our last meeting, the homework was kind of talking about just diving into something that you are passionate about. Don't think about, long-term vision, money. What does this mean? Whatever it is, just have fun with it for the month. So I want to check in with y'all on that. And before we do that, I want to kind of start by talking about perfectionism, because I know it's something that is such a hindrance to so many of us, when it comes to starting new things or to take an idea from like our mind to actually, bring it into the real world and making it something that we share with others. And I struggle with that as well. I mean, I still do, even with all the work that I try and do on myself and pushing against this type of stuff, even recently, like I was, really like, I got to kind of, start making more of a TikTok presence. It's just a necessary evil. And I was kind of overthinking the content, like, oh, what am I going to make though? How am I going to present this? I can't, outside of just reposting clips from the podcast, how am I going to make original content? And that perfectionism like stopped me from doing it for a few weeks at a time. And then once I did it, and it wasn't a big deal. And I was able to consistently, dive into that content and put it out. But again, it was that perfectionism, kind of holding me back from getting to this task that I knew that I had to get into. What's up, Jade? So I'm just kind of catching people up on what I've been thinking as far as perfectionism. And I know that's something you and I have talked about before, but I think it's ultimately like the biggest roadblock we often have to get past is the idea of perfect and the idea of something not being ready or not being enough, not being good enough. Like I had just done a podcast episode just talking about like the idea of like embracing the things that you're good at just as much as the things that are like your limitations. And when you're able to get the two of them to like work together in unison and on the same team, that's when you have like your unique stamp on whatever it is that you're doing. Right. So like I am, like I've been getting a lot into like designing stuff like clothing and graphic design stuff. I'm not naturally a gifted artist who can draw you a picture. I'm not like a Photoshop whiz who can, make any idea come to life, but I know what I like and I know how to make what I like. Right. And maybe for a while I might be like frustrated with myself because I can't be as good as somebody else. And this definitely happened in music where I wanted to produce music that sounded like my favorite producers and I couldn't do it. I couldn't write melodies like them. I couldn't do this like them. And that would frustrate me. That would stop me from actually honing my craft and really working on something because I just felt like I wasn't good enough because I couldn't do what they did. And once I began to realize that, in working within my limitations is how I actually create something unique, that like blew my mind for everything that I do. Right. And now I embrace the imperfection because I know that it's like my unique stamp on whatever it is that I'm doing. That is something only I could create. Right. And that's what changes the world. That is what moves the needle is the originality. Right. But the originality comes from embracing the imperfections just as much as the things that are like outwardly facing amazing about it. Right. And, I think it's easy, I think, for a lot of us to fall into this trap, depending on, especially how you were brought up. Like my father is OCD. My father is the ultimate perfectionist, like to a fault, to just like the point he drives himself crazy, trying to get everything perfect. And, as a kid growing up, my father never was like the guy using power tools. He was never assembling stuff, building shit. It was always like, oh, we have to get somebody else to help us with that. Right. And then that raised me as an adult, as somebody who didn't know how to do anything around the house. I didn't know how to use a power tool. I didn't know how to use anything. And that was, his perfectionism always made me think that I needed somebody else in order to do something, right? In order to do it well or to do it properly. And I began to kind of push back against that. And obviously this is just like a silly example, but it's also something that is like something I've added to my toolkit of things that I can do now. But like I used to love watching like DIY videos on YouTube or watching people build their studios or build out their storefronts and like see the way that they were like repurposing wood and doing all these different things. And I was jealous. Like I always wanted to be able to do that. And I always kind of made the excuse like, well, I'm just not handy. I'm not naturally handy. And then I just had to kind of push myself one day. And it started with making a very simple bar cart that literally like I used a handsaw. That was as crazy as I got with it. And then you fast forward 2 years later and I built out an entire studio, you know what I mean? Like by myself, without the help of any contractors or anything like that. I built this wall behind you. I built another one that is literally just like this, but it's on wheels and it moves around. There's a TV screen attached to it and lights attached to it and things like that. Like, I was using power tools for the first time and it's not perfect. If you were to like really study this wall or study any of the things in the studio. They're not perfect, but I still made it happen. I brought my idea to life regardless, right? And I think that's what I'm want to really instill in people as we begin to think about our passions and wanting to figure out how to become more invested and more involved in them. It's also getting out of our own way to a degree, right? And understanding that the mistakes and, having to redo something over and over again at times, like that's all a part of the process. And that process makes you better inevitably, right? Like me starting with the bar cart and having a bunch of fucked up looking things that I built along the way led me to now actually having the skill set where I can bring an idea to life. I can dream up a studio and build it. And now I have it and I love it. And I can fix the things around, the building and not have to sit here relying on somebody else for everything that I do, right? It's like cutting out the middleman. But it took the process of sucking. It took the process of, getting better, little by little. And it's like the concept of, the idea of like 10,000 hours, right? That's when you actually master something, is when you have 10,000 hours put into it. And I just want to like drill this into your head again, to just get out of your own fucking way when it comes to like really diving into this stuff and really challenging yourself to bring these ideas into the real world, right? Because it's great to have an idea. It's great to be energized by it. It's great to tell your spouse or your significant other or your friends about this great idea that you have. But what is it really worth if it never leaves your mind, if it never becomes something more than it's just spoken about, right? So it's something I want to really kind of instill in you guys as we begin to talk about the homework and our passions and all these different things. As my dog is walking through my set. But, I think it's just an incredibly necessary thing to learn and something to always keep in mind. And then Jade, I was mentioning also, I'm going to break down for everybody how I set my goals and how that's just been like a game changer for me in making sure that I'm getting shit done and holding myself accountable. So with that said, I just want to check in with everybody. It's nice we kind of have like a little smaller group today so we can maybe get a little bit kind of deeper. But I want to just check in and first and foremost, see how you're genuinely feeling beyond just like, I'm good, everything's good, just busy, with work. Like genuinely, actually, really let us know how you're feeling. It could be you had a shitty day, you had a long day, it's been a rough week, whatever it is. And then I want to check in about kind of your homework. I mean, and for me to start, I'm pretty burnt out right now. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I am pushing it right now. I have a lot of shit that I've probably bit off more than I can chew. But I also am listening to my body, and I'm going away next week. So I'm trusting myself, and that's something that's a very big difference for me. So I'm feeling good about that. As much as I feel like maybe I need to chill a little bit, I'm feeling great and proud of myself in this moment, that I am listening to myself, taking care of my body, taking care of my mind, and knowing when it's time for me to kind of hit pause for a second and not be nervous that life is going to crumble if I take a week off, So that's where I'm at. And, I didn't participate necessarily in this homework, but for me, my homework has been this entire year, keep following your creative intuition and just see where it takes you. Don't worry about, how you're going to market it, where it fits into everything that you're doing. Just like if you have a whim, go for it and just see what happens. So I've been kind of on that path myself.
All right, I'm hopping here real quick. We'll take a break and then we'll be right back. All right, we are back, and now more of this conversation from the Just Be Social Club.
Even first and foremost, how I would see what you said with your boss, like it was the opportunity you were hoping for, but you got something that is going to still be a positive force for you, at least financially, right? Like to me, I always see that as just like, that's like the bridge that you needed to keep going on your path. You know what I mean? It was like you kind of hit this like creek or river, whatever, and like you didn't know how you're going to get across, and now like life gifted you that to remind you to keep on going, to keep on the path that somewhere down the line you're going to get to where you need to be, and it's going to just keep giving you the opportunities that you need to keep you on your path, right? Like I think to myself, I have a lot of like money trauma, right? And in what I do, a lot of times financially, I get lump sums of money at one time, right? And then I have to figure out how to make it last the entire year. And even if I'm doing okay with budgeting, I still have the mentality in my mind, if I'm not getting a check on a consistent basis, then I need to start freaking out, like, that the sky is falling essentially, right? And so I even was running into that recently, where I was just kind of like, man, like, I don't feel like I haven't cashed a check in a long time. I'm just seeing as little by little I'm spending, and with my expenses and things are going away. And then that bridge happened, like, to give me that peace of mind of like, oh, all summer long I have like a bunch of checks I'm able to count on. You know what I mean? To just give me that peace of mind that I no longer even have to think about it. Even though I was going to be okay, at least I can like cure that part of my brain that still is like in that cycle. And again, it's like a bridge. It's a Band-Aid. I still have to work through those feelings and like get over that. But life is rewarding me with something to keep on going. It's like a reminder, just that little nudge I needed to get out of my own head and get back to work, kind of thing, And I think, I love what you said about making sure your actions also follow like the call for manifestation, right? And yes, whatever is yours will always be yours, but you also have to be doing the work. And it's something I talk to myself about a lot recently, as I've been having ups and downs, right? I don't know if you guys have been following like the writer's strike we're having here in the States with like all the television and movie writers. And like, I have a project that I've been working on for almost 2 years at this point. And like, so close to like signing contracts, and literally it's been months and people have been dragging their feet. Now it's picking up speed, and the writer's strike happens and it's fucking everything up right now, right? And it's disappointing. It's like heartbreaking. I feel for some other people on the project who were really counting on this as like their big breakthrough thing, both financially and career-wise. And I'm thinking about them. And I just have to like remind myself that for whatever reason, now is not the time for this to happen. For whatever reason, it's beyond my control. I've put in the work. I've shown up disciplined. I've done everything I had to do, and I took it this far. Now it's time for me to just put it on the shelf for now until like life opens back up and gives me the opportunity to work on it again. And what I've been reminding myself of in these moments right now, because I think I have a lot of little things like that are in these phases where they're about to hit that tipping point, but there's just something holding it back for right now. I just keep reminding myself each night, like an affirmation, like, you're doing the work. You're showing up every single day and you're doing the work. And that's all you can do. That you're manifesting it, but then on top of that, you're following up by all the little actions that you're in control of, that it's bound to tip in your favor at some point. You just have to keep showing up, right? And I think that's what I pair with like my idea of just always being able to manifest things, is that I know that I'm showing up to do the work on a disciplined basis, right? And you're not going to be in control of all of the work that you do. You're not going to be able to do every single thing that is needed to drag it across the finish line. There are always other moving parts. But as long as you know you're showing up every single day, ready to get down to business and to take care of what you have to, that's all that you can really do, right? You can't ask for anything else of yourself or of the universe. And again, you just have to keep that faith. I think, and I keep reminding myself, something else I remind myself is that like, the only way I'm going to fail is if I stop trying. So just don't stop trying, and you're inevitably going to step in shit at some point. You know what I mean? Like that I just always keep that in the back of my mind when the moments when like I get a disappointing email or something beyond my control happens, and just keep reminding myself to keep going, like even something you said today about getting an email and it wasn't the response you were hoping for, right? Like I relate to that so much, and maybe something is in with the astrology and all these different things, right? But like, I know last week I was just like dragging ass, like stumbling hard just to get to Friday, and then like, then we just made time on the weekend and like made up for it, and I was proud of myself. But like, I know that was a rough fucking week to get through just to do the bare minimum. And then even this week, like I had been pumping myself up about like this opportunity of working with like a big time manager, and like we had been having good conversations and blah blah blah, and I got an email that she just couldn't take on any more clients, and it was incredibly disappointing. And I remember I had done all the manifesting shit you're supposed to. I felt what it's going to be like signing with that person and the door they're going to be able to open, and I couldn't sleep the night before, when I was supposed to have a email back from them. Like I was like, man, this is it. We're on our track. Like start, dusting off those notebooks that you have with all your ideas written down, because this is the person you were looking for to connect certain dots. And then I got that disappointing email. And like, of course, I'm like, fuck, this manifestation shit doesn't work. This sucks, blah, 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 right? But to your point, was I really doing the work? She was the only manager that in that class that I was pursuing. I hadn't been doing research on anybody else, and she fell into my lap because of my lawyer. So I'm sitting here saying this is the team member that I'm missing is like a solid manager day to day, and I haven't been doing shit to really attract that person or to put myself in their vision aside from my normal day to day thing, right? So it's then looking back and saying, okay, well, this was disappointing, but now I'm realizing where I was coming up short, and now I'm also excited because I came up short not because I wasn't good at it or that I'm not supposed to be doing these things. It's like the timing was off, and at the same time, I wasn't also putting in the amount of work that I should have been putting into it to even expect those results. Right? It's like having those honest conversations with yourself, and and again, I think I love how you kind of phrase that and the idea of like it's not just manifestation alone; it's also showing the fuck up each and every day, like with your discipline. And last thing I'll say is I love how you talked about like almost not hopping on this meeting because you didn't know if you had like the sort of like if you were drained socially, if you had anything left in your tank, right? And I go through that sometimes too. And then I remind myself like, yeah, but this is something you love doing. You always get energized by it. And I push myself to log on and do it. And I feel great about it after the fact, right? And I think that it's like sometimes even though we know what's best for us, that fucking negative mind gets in the way and it pushes us to do things that are not in our best interest, right? Like, oh, I know I shouldn't eat this, or I know I should go to the gym, or I know I should like do this thing. But like that other voice is like, you know what? Nah, you can do it tomorrow. Put it off, right? And oftentimes it's very easy to listen to that mind. I think that's what probably has set people apart who find success and who are able to make things happen is they're able to fight back against that voice, right? They're able to find the discipline needed to say, even if I'm not up to it right now, I know this is necessary for the greater vision. This is what my future self is going to be proud of that I showed up in this moment. And that's what they allow to kind of control them. They don't let that other voice win. And I just think that that's like an incredibly important thing to keep in mind, but also that you should be patting yourself on the back for the fact that you pushed through that, right? Like you're fighting through some really tough shit as far as like the voices in our mind that try to tell us these different things. And like any battle that you win with that is something to be celebrated, So I think you gotta look at it that way. But I think you're onto, I think, a great sort of mindset with everything. And, sometimes you fall off your meditation. Sometimes you fall off of this, you fall off of that. Oh, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as you're aware and you're holding yourself accountable as far as like recognizing like, okay, I got to do a little bit better here, a little bit better there. That's all that you can ask for. We're all human. You know what I mean? Like it's just not always go, 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 no matter how disciplined you are or anything. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean any of the above. It just means you're human having a human moment. It's going to happen. I have those moments where I go into a cave and I don't do anything that I should be doing for a while, So it's just easy to not, it's important to not beat yourself up, even though it's not easy.
Man, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation from a past meeting of the Just Be Social Club. Again, I don't know. I think it's important, even if you were a part of that club, it's important to revisit those conversations. I think sometimes more than anything, we just need a reminder. Like we know the information. Sometimes we just need somebody to sort of nudge us back on track, if you will. And that's why I like revisiting these old conversations and old topics that maybe we've covered before, but sometimes we need, a little reminder on. And I'll kind of put a pin in everything and expound upon some of the ideas as we tie everything in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for conclusion stew.
All right, so I think the general takeaways as I revisited that conversation, what stood out for me, and I'd love to hear kind of what stood out for you if I'm missing something that was particularly profound for you. But I love how I kind of started with the idea of like one of the biggest roadblocks we all face and the idea that we are our own biggest roadblock, and it's oftentimes our idea of perfectionism. And I've talked about this a ton, obviously, but I think in the context of always being in a mode of constant creation, nothing will kill that creation more than perfectionism. And I think that is what makes so many people sort of stall out or not even try, is the idea of perfectionism. The right moment, the right opportunity, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes here. Like getting caught up in this idea of how things are supposed to be before you can move forward will inevitably make you shoot yourself in the foot before you even start the race. And I think, I was using the example in there of like, I built my studio and I built a fucking deck, and my deck in my backyard is by no means perfect, but I learned so much along the process, and I still have a fucking deck. Like I utilize this deck every summer. I'm thinking about that. It's on my mind because we were having like a 70-degree weather. Thank God, finally, over here, and it's about to be deck season. And I'll be putting on that grill apron real soon. And yeah, are there things I notice every time I step foot on the fucking deck? Absolutely. But like, it's provided a, progress for my backyard. My backyard is like now a far more enjoyable place for me as a result, And I think that is sort of the thing we always have to keep in mind. It's like, it's not about getting it right, all the time. It's not about it looking exactly as it did in your head. It's just about actually fucking doing something. It's actually thinking about an idea, conceptualizing it, and then actually taking action. Like that's the most important part, is the action. Like there's no value in ideas that live in your head. And I've talked about that a bunch of times as well. But I think, we're all sort of frustrated at times because we're not where we want to be. Things aren't panning out as we would have hoped. This isn't right. This is bothering us. This person let us down, whatever it might be. And those are real emotions, real feelings. And I'm not, taking anything away from those very real emotions that come up when we are disappointed by life or people in our life. But the only answer, the only solution is to create another opportunity, right? Create a new opportunity to find further happiness. That's all you can do for yourself. Literally, that's the only thing that we are able to do, right? There are so many things. I can't help if these people from these different projects are taking forever to email me back, right? I can't help that. The action I can take is I can sort of follow up politely to hopefully nudge them into responding. If that doesn't work, I then have to sort of be okay with letting go of the opportunity and moving on to something else and seeing what are the other options. Who else do I know that I can work with in the same capacity, right? But it's detrimental to sort of just sit there and get frustrated. It's like, oh, but it would have worked out perfectly with this person or this idea and blah, blah, blah. And life sucks and all these different things. And it's like, dude, it's always going to be what you make it. Right. And it's easy for me to say that, when talking to somebody else. It's harder to, swallow that pill when you're talking about a situation for yourself. And quite frankly, I'm talking to myself right now and I'm calming myself down. I'm talking myself off the ledge, if you will, right now, of just kind of like, what the fuck are you going to do? I can send the polite nudge. If that doesn't work, I have to keep on moving on with my life. I got to figure out the next thing. I got to create the next opportunity. I have to open my mind up and, get down on my laptop and fucking open up ChatGPT and have a back and forth, brainstorming session with it. Throw on some documentaries that I'm inspired by. Talk to some friends, whatever it might be. Like, I have to just keep putting myself in positions for opportunity. And the only way to do that is to stay in a mode of constant creation, and it's, and it's all shit. Like, this is all information that it's information that I know. I'm literally telling myself same shit. Like, I have these conversations every fucking month when I have to tell myself after a frustrating situation, but it's literally showing up every morning with my to-do list, attacking it as best I can that day, and, try not to get caught up in the results of it all, right? Which is, again, another difficult thing. But like, the things that make us frustrated, that piss us off, that make us depressed are the fact that we're getting so, so obsessed with the results of it all, how we want things to be, how we want things to look, how we want them to appear, how we want others to act. Like, that's really at the end of the day, that is the cause of our feelings of anger and frustration, is our projections on sort of trying to make life exist the way that it does in our head. And that's just not feasible, and at times, it will, we might get lucky and have opportunities where it does work out as planned or as we had hoped or better than we hoped. But oftentimes, more than not, it's going to throw you curveballs. It's going to look different. It's, unexpected opportunities and unexpected failures will show up at your doorstep, and you just keep staying in this mode of constant creation. That's the only answer to all of our problems, is a mode of constant creation, right? It's like when you get terrible, terrible news, or like say all of a sudden, you got, a fucking expense that, even beyond that, God forbid, unexpectedly your company goes under and everybody loses their job. Unfortunately, we live in a world that does not have empathy for that. Your bills are still going to be due, right? Your mortgage company still wants to get paid. Your car company still wants their monthly payment. So you just sort of stopping and being pissed off at the world and sleeping all day is not going to be the thing that fixes the situation. You have to get into a mode of creating opportunity. That means sending out your resume. That means hitting up friends in your industry, asking around, are there any job opportunities? There's no shame, and you have to go drive Uber Eats or whatever, in the meantime to keep the lights on. But that's what I mean by being in a constant mode of creation. It's, you just have to keep moving, right? That the only way you truly fail is when you stop moving, when you stop trying to find a solution and they take away your house and your livelihood and you end up on the street or whatever, right? Like, God forbid. That's the only time that, you sort of end up failing, is when you just give up and accept all the bullshit that life will throw to you if you don't, take control. Like, if you relinquish control just to life, it will throw a whole bunch of shit at you that you don't want, and it will be, the worst case scenario. And I'm just rambling. I'm literally talking to myself right now. Like, because I guess last thing I'll end on is, like, I guess the precipice for this was, like, I woke up today, did some of the things I had set out. And it's like, yesterday I'm like, all right, maybe they'll email me back. Nope. I'm like, you know what? It's Monday, right? It's Monday. People are fucking catching up on emails and blah, 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 blah. Right? And one of them is like overseas. I think they're like 8 hours ahead. So I'm like, all right. I woke up and I was like, usually I'll get an email at like 4 a.m., So I do my morning routine. I open my email and I look, no fucking email from that person. So immediately then, after I started the day with, peacefully, I'm fucking annoyed now. And because it's Tuesday now, which means if I didn't get it by now, I'm not going to fucking get an email probably till tomorrow at the earliest if I get it. Now we're middle of the week. Right. And potentially now it's like, okay, we're going to fucking go through a whole other situation of, it's not just one email I need. They have to respond to something. I need to respond. They need to send something like it. So now we're back into next week. So now we're fucking 3 weeks out of what we originally were supposed to be doing. And I got so frustrated, so annoyed. On top of that, daylight savings is just kicking my fucking ass right now, where I'm exhausted for no reason. And I lost the motivation to do anything today. And I took care of the bare minimum that I had to do. I also had to go to the dentist, and she kind of fucked me up today too. So I just lost that motivation, right? Because and from that standpoint, I sort of just stopped sort of taking advantage of the day and creating opportunity. So now I'm just sitting here. I'm on my phone. I'm doom scrolling. I'm just fucking annoyed at life. I'm refreshing my email app, and I'm getting more and more pissed off by the fact that we're literally 2 emails away from closing out this deal, and for no reason whatsoever, this person's just dragging their fucking feet. And that is the worst thing you could do to yourself. Because again, I'm just sitting here fucking basking in the misery of this moment, if you will. When the healthy, better thing to do would be, all right, it sucks. Take a moment to fucking take it in. All right, now what's the next thing I could be doing? Because there's a ton of other shit that I have going on that I could be doing right now to progress forward and win this day still, right? Rather than just sulk in it and allow a perfectly good day to go to waste, a perfectly good 70 degree day in the New York area to just go to waste. I'm just rotting away in my living room with the fucking shades drawn, you know? And that's so much, I think, of what people like end up doing in life. And it just takes them continuously further and further down a dark path until, you know, they really have this cynical outlook on the world and are frustrated by what they see when they look in the mirror. But all of that is avoidable by just accepting the situation and always looking for an opportunity to create. Just staying in that mode of creation day after day, trying not to worry too much about what it all means in the grand scheme of it all, but just knowing that the little grunt work, the little, you know, creation every day, the creative outlook on life of what could I be doing, what should I be doing, will eventually yield some sort of results that'll you know, keep kicking the ball down the road, if you will, and give you that bridge to the next thing. I'm literally talking to myself. I hope this connected, but I needed to hear this today. With that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Hope this was helpful. I'll catch y'all on Thursday with a brand new episode for our Thursday trends. Till then, stay safe and we shall talk soon. Peace.